Eleanor Reid was known for being a relentless leader, sharp, calculated, and driven by purpose. As CEO of one of Chicago's most prestigious tech firms, she operated in a world of board meetings, billion-dollar deals, and high-rise glass offices. But in recent months, it wasn't an investor or executive that had caught her attention. It was the janitor. Every evening, while Eleanor burned the midnight oil and most of the staff had gone home, the cleaning crew would trickle in, silent and efficient. Among them was a man who stood out without ever trying to. He never lingered, never socialized, and never made noise. But there was something in the way he worked, meticulous and fast, that tugged at her curiosity. He moved with purpose, always glancing at the clock, as though every second mattered. One night she stayed later than usual, going over reports for a major merger. It was nearly 11 p.m. when she realized she'd left her car keys in the boardroom. As she walked back through the lobby, she paused near the elevator, catching sight of him mopping the marble floor in sweeping, practiced motions. He looked exhausted but focused. When he glanced up, their eyes met for a fleeting moment. There was something unspoken in his gaze, dignity wrapped in wariness. Eleanor stepped back into the shadows, watching as he checked his phone, hurriedly packed up his supplies, and disappeared out the back entrance. That moment stayed with her. She couldn't explain why it unsettled her. Maybe it was the contrast between their lives, the CEO and the janitor, both in the same building yet worlds apart. Or maybe it was something deeper. He didn't act like a man resigned to his fate. He moved like someone fighting a private battle. Eleanor found herself distracted the next day, remembering the clock, checking, the quick exit, the look in his eyes. It wasn't pity she felt, it was intrigue. Who was he, really? What was he rushing home to? And why did it feel like his story was more important than the contracts waiting on her desk? That night, Eleanor made an uncharacteristic decision. She would find out who he was, not as a CEO looking down, but as a human being watching another. She didn't know it yet, but what she was about to discover would challenge everything she believed about success, struggle, and second chances. The next evening, Eleanor left the office just minutes after the janitor, her long coat blending with the city's nighttime chill. She felt a strange nervousness as she followed him from a distance, weaving through the crowds and traffic of downtown Chicago. The man, whose name she still didn't know, walked with purpose, shoulders slightly hunched, hands deep in his pockets, eyes fixed ahead. He didn't stop for food or drinks, didn't scroll through a phone, and didn't dawdle at bus stops. There was no air of leisure in his movements, only quiet urgency. After nearly 20 minutes, he boarded a worn-out city bus. Eleanor followed, slipping into a seat several rows behind. Her heart pounded in her chest, unsure why this felt more intense than any boardroom negotiation. He rode in silence, staring out the window as the city lights gave way to dimmer streets and shuttered storefronts. The bus dropped him off near a rundown apartment complex on the city's edge. Eleanor trailed him carefully, her heels now clutched in one hand, her curiosity overpowering her fear. Through a gap in a rusted chain-link fence, she saw him approach a modest unit with chipped paint and a flickering porch light. As he unlocked the door, the silence of the night was broken by the delighted squeals of two young girls who rushed into his arms. They clung to him tightly, laughing, one of them holding a crayon drawing. The sight stopped Eleanor in her tracks. The janitor, this quiet, worn man, was a father. A single dad from the look of it. Then a woman appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a thin cardigan, pale and visibly ill. She smiled weakly and nodded as he gently helped her sit on a couch just inside. Eleanor stood frozen, the image before her unraveling every assumption she had made. He wasn't just a janitor clocking in and out. He was a man fighting to hold together a fragile world behind closed doors. The rush, the exhaustion, the silence. It all made sense now. She turned to leave, her eyes stinging unexpectedly. Something had shifted inside her. This wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was admiration, respect, and an ache she couldn't name. She didn't know what she would do next, but she knew one thing. She couldn't go back to pretending not to see him. Eleanor spent the following day in a daze, her mind drifting from quarterly earnings reports to the image of Daniel. She finally learned his name from HR. Kneeling in the doorway of that worn-out apartment, his daughters clinging to him with joy that defied the hardships surrounding them. She hadn't planned to look into his file, but something deeper than impulse had driven her to request it quietly through her executive assistant. There, she found a brief profile: Daniel Reyes, age 32, widowed, 2 dependents, employed with the company for 2 years, no disciplinary actions, excellent performance reviews. Nothing in the paperwork reflected the man she had seen. Overworked, undersupported, and juggling the responsibilities of parenthood with almost impossible grace. The more Eleanor read, the heavier her heart became. He had taken no sick days, declined healthcare benefits likely because they didn't extend to family under his hourly contract, and had never once complained. Not a word about his struggles, no special requests. He simply showed up night after night, doing his job with silent integrity. Eleanor closed the file slowly, feeling the weight of something unfamiliar: guilt. She had built a company with a mission of innovation and progress. Yet someone like Daniel had been overlooked right under her nose. She couldn't stop thinking about the frail woman she'd seen in his apartment. Further inquiry revealed she was his late wife's sister, suffering from a chronic illness. Lupus, undiagnosed and untreated for too long. Daniel had taken her in after his wife passed during childbirth, and had been caring for her and the twins alone ever since. No daycare, no extra help, just a nightly routine of working through exhaustion to keep them all afloat. Eleanor didn't know exactly when she made the decision, but it was as natural as breathing. She arranged for anonymous grocery deliveries through a local service, paid the overdue rent on his apartment through a third-party charity, and quietly had a mobile clinic sent to evaluate his sister-in-law's health. She took every step carefully, never revealing herself, respecting the pride she sensed in him, but still, it wasn't enough. Watching from a distance felt like cowardice. If a man like Daniel could give everything and ask for nothing, then surely someone in her position could do more. Not out of pity, but because people like Daniel didn't just deserve help. They deserved a chance. Daniel stood at the threshold of the executive conference room, anxiety pulsing through his veins. He had never been summoned here before. The glass walls, leather chairs, and gleaming table felt like a different universe compared to the one he cleaned every night. He clutched his cap in his hands, unsure if he was in trouble. When the door opened, he was stunned to see Eleanor Reid herself, poised, confident, and smiling in a way that wasn't cold or formal, but almost kind. She gestured for him to sit. "Daniel," she said gently, "thank you for coming." His throat tightened. "Did I do something wrong?" She shook her head. "No. In fact, you've done everything right." He didn't understand. Not yet. Eleanor explained that she had been observing his dedication, his work ethic, and his unwavering commitment. She told him about a new program the company was launching, an apprenticeship for facilities management, one that included paid training, full benefits, and career advancement. And she wanted Daniel to be the first participant. His hands trembled as he listened, unsure whether this was real or a cruel joke. But she wasn't smiling out of pity. She was serious and respectful. "Why me?" he asked quietly. Eleanor leaned forward, her voice steady. "Because you show up. Because you lead by example. Because you've taken care of others for so long, and now it's time someone saw your worth." Daniel sat in stunned silence, blinking away the tears he didn't want her to see. For so long he had lived in survival mode, never allowing himself to dream beyond the next paycheck or hospital visit. Now, someone was handing him a key to something bigger, not a handout, but a way forward. Over the next few months, Daniel transformed. He worked days in the training program and nights with his daughters, who now had a private tutor, thanks to Eleanor's quiet intervention. His sister-in-law received regular care and grew stronger each week. The old apartment was replaced with a modest home in a safer neighborhood. At the office, Daniel began leading a team of maintenance staff, his insight and compassion earning admiration from everyone, even those who once overlooked him. One evening, As he walked past the CEO's office, he knocked lightly. Eleanor looked up. "Thank you," he said softly. She smiled. "No, Daniel. Thank you for reminding us what true leadership really looks like."